All right, hello everybody. Thanks so much for joining in today. Welcome to another Showcase AMA here on the Polygon Discord. Today we got a really cool project. We have Odos, and we have Matt and Yuri from the Odos team. How are you guys doing today?
Doing excellent. Thank you. Thank you for
Yep,
having us.
doing great.
Yeah, I'm fired up to have you guys here. Really excited to talk about Odos. I think it's a really cool project. But before we jump into it, let's talk a bit about both of you. So I'm curious, like, what's your background, your backstory? What got you um, into crypto, and like, what were you doing before the space? Maybe Yuri, perhaps you want to go first.
Yes, of course. So I come from a traditional corporate finance M&A background. I worked in the mergers and acquisition space for over 10 years. I've been in crypto since late 2014, 2015, both as an observer, an investor, and advisor to a number of different projects. And have been working on Odo since late last year.
Yeah, and I come from a background in artificial intelligence and reinforcement learning. Got into crypto last year working on the graph, and then transitioned over to Odos.
Sweet, that's pretty exciting. Um, so what inspired the creation of Odos, and when was it started?
Yeah, so Odos was started about midway through last year. At least those were the very early roots. And it sort of came about just first learning as I mentioned, we got into crypto, or at least I got into crypto at the beginning of last year, starting to take a deep dive into all of the DeFi and the dexes, and uh, especially with the background in AI, it became a very interesting problem thinking about how we can optimize routing through all of these dexes. Um, and so that's kind of the motivation behind it, and we managed to create a good solution that uh, was competitive on the market, and so we productized it into Odos.
Fantastic. How many people are on the Odos team, by the way?
There are 5.
Cool. And when did you guys first go live on mainnet?
Yeah, so we began working on the project again late of last year. We launched in beta in, I believe, in April, late April, and launched on Polygon initially.
Awesome. That's super exciting. So, Odos is essentially like a DEX aggregator. Could you just like provide a breakdown of like the services you provide, like how it all works?
Yes, of course. So yeah, to your point, Otis is the DEX aggregator. It's an optimal DEX aggregator that enables users to swap from one or from several tokens into another token. So specifically within Polygon, we tap into approximately 65 liquidity sources, and our algorithm, which is patented algorithm, calculates the best path to maximize the output value of your token swaps.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. So when you're looking for like these different sources to create these routes for swapping, like what is the criteria for deciding that? Because there's like so many different choices, and they all come with their own like unique conditions. Is there any like unique conditions that or criteria that have to be met in order to become one of the paths that Odos routes through?
Yeah, so I can speak at a very high level. Essentially, what we're optimizing for is output of the trade minus the gas cost of the trade. So we basically pool as much liquidity as possible, as many contracts that can be used to swap one token for another. And there is some minimum criteria for consideration at all, like having over $100, for instance. But once we have that, we're basically just, at a very high level, maximizing the output minus the gas cost.
Yeah, and so can this work for like basically any token as long as there's only at least like trading liquidity for it? And yeah, I guess like I'm still curious like how the routing works. Like how do you choose like which paths to route through?
Yeah, so the first question, it can work for any token. We have sort of a whitelist available on the site by default right now because many tokens can charge fees or blacklist certain contracts, and that can mess up the routing and cause other problems. So we keep it limited to a whitelist for now. But in any token that doesn't have such mechanisms, will work with the routing. For the second question, I don't think can get into too many details about how the algorithm works for now. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. I get it's pretty complicated, but something that I found very intriguing about it is, like I was playing around with some of the different token inputs, and one thing I want to comment on is the user interface. Very nice looking. It's incredible, very responsive. It's cool how it keeps on like switching and updating the paths, and it looks so good. Like with all the different colors, you can like really visualize how everything's working. But yeah, something that really struck me as interesting is one of the paths sometimes is Aave, and that Aave is not a deck, so like I'm curious like what's going on there.
Absolutely, yeah. So we tend to focus on dexes because that's really the main place that you can swap one token for another. But at a higher level, what we really care about is any contract we can use to swap one token for another. And so Aave essentially is swapping one token for another. It just does so at a one-to-one exchange rate. So what you do on Aave is you're swapping some underlying token like USDC into the Aave wrapped version. In this case, Aave wrapped USDC. And so we integrate platforms like that also into Odos, and we'll continue expanding that offering, which really starts to make it more of a DeFi aggregator more than just a DEX aggregator, which makes it even more powerful.
Yeah, I like that term you just coined there, a DeFi aggregator, and I definitely think that's like one of your unique selling propositions or something that helps you to stand out from others, because that's like really interesting being able to like swap directly into and like out of Aave market tokens. Um, cool. Well, I'm wondering if perhaps maybe you'd like to jump into doing like a screen share of the platform itself and providing us like a visual representation of how everything works.
Sure, sure. Let me try to share the screen. All right, can you guys see it?
Yeah, it looks incredible. That
All right,
and I love
perfect.
that animation you guys have on the homepage.
Yeah, so yep, so this is our homepage, odos.xyz. So here we describe a little bit about what Odos is and what it does, and what are the unique differentiation for DEX aggregation advantages, and the unique differentiation specifically for Odos. So again, as I mentioned, we have a patented algorithm that searches a pretty wide range of possible token combinations, delivering the ultimate savings to users. So we focus heavily on optimization for these complex routing problems. We are also the first and only DEX aggregator that allows users to swap from several assets for example, on our UI, which I'll show you in a moment, you could swap from up to 6 tokens into one asset, which is a unique differentiation among the DeFi and index aggregators. Maybe I could show you a quick video that gives you an overview about Odos, and hopefully you'll be able to get the audio as well.
Well, the audio isn't working, but it's still a really good video.
Right. Sorry. So the audio didn't come through?
But it's still a really good video that showed off how intuitive
All right,
everything is.
Well, turn on the volume when you come and visit odos.xyz. Another aspect to our homepage is that we do have a cross-chain arbitrage. So this is the project that Matt began working on last year that prompted us to actually create the Odos. So users can actually go and check it out as we're monitoring cross-chain arbitrage on multiple different chains. And then we also offer API services for traders that want to tap into our smart order routing and use it within their solutions. So let me quickly launch the app. Hopefully you could see this.
Yeah, it looks great.
All right, perfect. Yep. So this is our Odos interface. As you know, as you mentioned, we have a very nice order routing plan where we show users specifically how the order is being routed from an input token, in this case Matic, and output token, in this case Sand. We're showing you all the different dexes that this order is going through and all the intermediary tokens that this order will be routed through. Again, another unique differentiation for Odos is that we are not limiting the number of intermediary tokens that the order is routed through, which gives us a bit more complexity on the order routing side and ultimately delivers greater savings to the end users in terms of the output. Yeah, and the interface is very, very simple. You simply input the token amount, select your output token, and make the swap. Simply sign the transaction. And once it processes, we'll get a confirmation here. And another pretty unique feature for our users who love UX UI is we could actually share your completed path. So as soon as your swap is completed, you can click this little button and you could download the image of your swap and actually copy the text here and share it on Twitter and showcase your pretty path that you just completed. And let me show you the multi-token input feature, which again is very unique. Essentially, you're able to swap from up to 6 different tokens into one asset. And again, you could see that this complexity continues to change as the order gets routed, as the new DEXs get introduced, and token splits as well. All right. Is there anything else we could answer for you?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely have several more questions, and I'm sure the audience has questions as well. I love how everything looks on the website. I think being able to share the image of your order route plan will be a really good method to organically like grow awareness about you guys. And like speaking of awareness, like what are your plans to drive adoption to the platform?
Sure. So most recently, we've launched a viral marketing campaign in partnership with Project Galaxy. So we are incentivizing every user who comes in and does a swap into a specific token. They're able to mint a token-specific NFT on the Galaxy's website. So that's kind of our part of our promotion is, again, introducing users to Odos, introducing them to this new order routing, to this new interface, encouraging to make multi-asset, multi-token swaps. So this is kind of our initial step in growing the user base. And then going forward, we're continuing, to refine the product. We're going to be adding a few new features towards the end of this quarter and earlier next year, and going to be continuing to add liquidity. So hopefully that will, again, attract more users to come and use the product.
Yeah, most definitely. And I noticed that it looked like you guys had some, I guess you would call them contests to like get NFTs going on right now,
Right.
as well.
Right.
You guys seem to.
Yeah. Until October 20th, yeah. Any swap on Odos, there's a list of tokens that are actually participating. So anyone who swaps into those tokens, there's a small minimum on Polygon, I think, of a $20 trade. They're able to mint an NFT, and essentially they can collect all of them if they want, or they can just mint one. It's really up to the user and depending on their competitiveness.
Sweet, that's exciting. Yeah, I really like the art on all of those. Okay, we got a bunch of questions coming in, so probably a good time to start working through some of them. First one comes in from Fran. Just now in the page, I see a phone in the animation as an aggregator. Is there any plans for wallet integration or an Odos wallet? Or like, is it possible to use this on mobile?
Yeah, it is. And you can just visit it in a mobile browser, and you can use Wallet Connect to then connect to any mobile wallet. Alternatively, you can use the browser directly in a mobile wallet and also interact with the app. As far as future plans, I can let Yuri comment on that.
Yeah, we're going to continue to add new wallets, and obviously, having your own wallet as a DEX aggregator, that's an important feature too. So we have that in mind as well.
All right, Sleek BMW is wondering, will Odos be cross-chain eventually? Like, I guess he's wondering if you'll be supporting like cross-chain swaps or transfers.
Yeah, potentially. That's something we're definitely thinking about, and something we will be looking more closely at in the future. In the immediate term, we're completely focused on providing the best experience and the best prices on a single chain. I think once you've done that, providing cross-chain swaps is it's a good starting place for that. So the focus, will be completely on single chain swaps for now, but we might look into that in the future.
Cool, that's great to know. And makes a lot of sense. One thing at a time. Okay, another question I have would be related to the blockchains you're deployed on. So I noticed you're currently on Ethereum, Arbitrum, and Polygon. So curious, why did you choose to deploy on those chains, and are there any plans to deploy on other chains, and like what's the criteria you look for when like choosing a blockchain to be on?
Absolutely, yeah. So we started out on Polygon because of its very diverse DeFi ecosystem, and as well as uh, essentially a high DeFi TVL, and that's really the main metric we look at. It's not all encompassing, but it's as good a proxy to essentially user growth that you can really get, right? Um, because the number of users on the platform is what we really do care about. Um, so when looking to expand new chains, uh, and that's the case with Ethereum, of course, is Ethereum mainnet is very large and has the highest TVL. Arbitrum, we saw a very strong community in addition to its large TVL. So these are the types of things we look at in chains to decide on where to expand.
Yeah, definitely. That makes a lot of sense. And it seems like you're focused on EVM chains, right? Like, would you ever look at something like Solana or Cardano, or probably not?
Yeah, so in the near term, we're pretty much exclusively doing EVM chains just because there are so many great EVM chains. Um, there are also some big non-EVM chains, and I think longer term we will be looking at those as well. Uh, there's a bit more work involved in expanding to a non-EVM chain if all the current chains were on our EVM chains. So that's why we're prioritizing all EVM chains first. But I don't think it's out of the question to be deploying on non-EVM chains in the far future as well.
Cool. All right, Sleek BMW. Some interesting questions here. So he's wondering, do you have VCs who contributed to the development of the platform? Maybe I should like rephrase that and ask like, do you have any like key like partnerships going on that have been like instrumental in your development?
Sure. So we did raise seed funding earlier this year. Infinity Ventures led the round, and then we have a couple of other VCs and angel investors in that round.
Okay, cool. That's really cool to know. Do you have any plans for a token launch in the future?
So we are exploring the topic of tokenization. So we're going to be paying close attention to it this quarter of this year. So we'll probably have a bit more details in January, February timeframe that we could possibly share. But at this point in time, we do have we are thinking about that.
Yeah, and what would do you think like the main utility of that token would be, or is it like too early to say right now?
Well, yeah, that's $100 question, right? The utility of the token, there has to be a very good utility, and that's something that we're going to be working on in the remaining quarter of this year and beginning of the next year. Because outside of the token utility, obviously the product has to be mature. It has to have sufficient features that takes us outside of just being a DEX aggregator, right? We have a few other ideas in mind for what this product could be in the future. So I think that plays well into potential token utility in the future. So we'll announce that probably early next year.
Cool. Maybe we'll have to do another AMA to find out all about that. So we'll save that discussion for then. Um, cool. Sleek, another really good question from Sleek BMW. He's wondering, how do you guys generate revenue?
So at this point in time, we are pre-revenue, right? As a DEX aggregator, we are essentially providing the best quote for the end user. Unlike our competitors who are actually kickbacks to route some of the orders through their aggregator. We don't have those relationships, so we're not trying to capture that either. So at this point in time, there are no fees in using Odos, so it's totally pre-revenue, early stage company.
Cool. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You got to have the best prices and be competitive to drive adoption. Kind of like Uber in the early days, the Uber strategy. This is a really good question from Esne. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Don't gas costs pump if it's routed through multiple paths? Like it would be multiples of the 2100 or 21,000 way or gas. So yeah, that's like something I'm curious about too. Like if you're going through like multiple pathways, would it like make the transaction have a larger gas cost, or how does that work?
Yeah, so definitely larger, but not like doubling. Like if you're routing through two dexes, the cost is not really double because there's a lot of overhead essentially to making a transaction at all, and then sort of setting up the sort of things around that need to be there to execute these more complex paths. So there's some like base overhead, and then uh, once you have that base overhead out of the way, you can start using more and more dexes. Now these dexes do use more gas, and so that goes back to what I mentioned earlier, where I said that what we're really optimizing for is output value minus gas value. So we take the additional gas routing through a DEX is going to use into account, and we'll only provide that as the path if it's increasing the output enough to be worth it.
Cool. That's really interesting how that works. Yeah, it makes sense. You're kind of like bundling it into one transaction, and since it's all still in one transaction, it's not like the cost of doing five. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Um.
Yeah, essentially, if your output is net positive, then even if you're paying a bit more gas for a better output, that's how it would work.
Okay. Cool. Sleek with another good question. He's wondering if there will be any utilities to the NFTs that are available to mint right now, or um, is there any benefit to collecting all of them, or are they like purely just collectibles? Like,
Well, they're just like all NFTs, right? They're all collectibles for sure. You can collect one, or you can collect as many as you want. We've made the competition for those who are collecting a lot of them to be able to receive bonus NFTs, and some of those bonus NFTs will have small perks associated with them, specifically around the Discord channel, and maybe a few other perks. They'll will announce in the future. Where they can get additional benefits in future campaigns, etc. But yeah, we're encouraging people, to really to come and use the product, and again, as a reward, they would get that specific NFT.
um, okay. I see some questions asking about LPs and like our APYs. So, just to like clarify, you guys don't have any like liquidity pools. You don't have any like yield farming. Where the liquidity for trading comes from is like external sources, right? And you're kind of aggregating these external sources to find the best path.
Correct, yeah. As of now, we don't have any of our own liquidity or TVL. We're simply aggregating and accessing all of the DEXs and liquidity pools and TVL that already exist on a given chain.
Right, so it could route through something like QuickSwap, SushiSwap, Uniswap, Dystopia, anything that it's whatever has the best rates at the time. So just to like clarify for those questions in the chat regarding liquidity. Really good question here is regarding slippage. So how does slippage like tie into your platform?
Um, Yeah, so I'm assuming because this term does get double used to some extent, I'm assuming here we're talking about the execution price compared to the quote price. And so that is a real thing when you're using AMMs, and it's unavoidable. So we do have, like many swap platforms, we have a slippage limit that you can set, and the smart contract will then enforce that if the slippage is beyond your limit, the execution will revert, and so your funds will be protected in that respect. That you won't get a much lower exchange rate than you were expecting. Although, of course, that's still not a great scenario because you are still paying for gas.
Fantastic. Yeah, I'd rather pay for gas than get wrecked by slippage, though.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, you guys have honestly scaled up incredibly fast. What would be like some key achievements or even challenges that you had to like overcome along the way?
Well, we are one of many DEX aggregators, right? There are a few that have existed here for a couple of years. So that's obviously being the new product on a fairly mature market. You know, that's one of the challenges. The second is to tell the story. We came to find that not a lot of people understand what DEXs are, and then what DEX aggregation is. So there's a lot of educating that we have to do for our users to explain to them the benefits of using DEX aggregators. And then I guess the third is to showcase the unique features of Odos, specifically around the the UI and the visualization, the optimization of the algorithm itself, finding the best output, and then the new feature, which is the multi-token input. And, in the future, we might introduce a multi-token output as well. So again, it's really educating the end user, obviously in this market, and showcasing Odos, and launching really from scratch. I mean, just like any new early stage company, that's always a challenge.
Cool, cool. And we've definitely like already talked about this next question a bit, but just to like highlight everything again. Would you say is Odos' biggest competitive advantages? Like, what helps it to differentiate itself from all the wide variety of DEX aggregators in existence? Like, and if you want to get a little bit technical, that's okay. Like, I'm really like curious, like how you would define Odos, like how it differentiates itself.
Yeah, so I think there's a few things. Number one, the visualization and route. Yeah, the route visualization I think is a big one. There sort of seems to be an industry standard within aggregation, and I don't think it's necessarily super great, and we've tried to innovate on that, and I think that's a big differentiator. Number two are additional features. So multi-input is the one that's live right now. We are thinking of many other similar sort of additional capabilities you can get with this DEX aggregation model, and those will be added to the platform in the future, which should also be additional benefits. The third one is a bit more abstract, and so I'll try to explain this the best I can. And basically that's in the complexity of our routes. So, or at least the complexity we consider, because again, we do consider gas, and when the gas is not worth it, we go with simpler routes. But in the complexity we consider, if that complexity is worth it, and in many situations it is, that does translate into better prices for the end user. So one more concrete way we consider more complexity is we consider more routing tokens. So on most of the chains we're on, we consider hundreds of different tokens to route through, whereas many other aggregator platforms essentially compare more on the order of 10 or so. Um, the other big difference in complexity, and this is one of the reasons we needed a different visualization to begin with, is that we sort of consider what we call nonlinear token paths. So if you look at other aggregator platforms, you'll sort of see an initial split between different tokens, but then the tokens will just route straight to all to another token and all to another token, which we call a linear path through tokens. Whereas you can see in our route visualizations that not only is there initial split from your input token to different intermediate tokens, but those intermediate tokens can also split between different intermediate tokens, and they can interweave and recombine and reconnect, and that complexity is something that is unique to us as far as we know so far, and it can translate into better prices a lot of the time.
Yeah, that's huge. It sounds like you guys have put in a lot of hard work to like really make yourselves stand out and be different and be innovative. As far as I know, as far as I know, there's no one else doing these multi-token inputs. You're not aware of anyone else, are you? Like, I'm pretty sure you guys are introducing that.
Yeah, so we are the first DEX aggregator to do that. There are some other essentially private market making platforms that do multi-input, but we are the only DEX aggregator to do that, and as far as we know, the one to introduce it.
Cool. That's amazing. I guess another good question to ask would be like where you see yourselves in the future. I don't want to say 5 years because that's a long time for DeFi. Maybe the next 1 to 3 years. Like, what are some goals that you have for yourself?
Yeah, so I'll say 1 year. Many more chains is a big one, and many more dexes. Those are two fairly simple ones, but they're gonna remain a focus for us because we want to be available to as many people as possible, and we want to be providing the best rates to everyone who's using the platform. And a huge part of that is just the liquidity you can access, right? We can have an edge in the order routing algorithm, but if you can't access a portion of the liquidity on a chain, that really hurts your ability to provide the best prices. So that's going to remain a focus for us. Beyond that, we have many, like I alluded to, additional features that we're looking into. One is multi-output. So we have multi-input right now. We've been doing some research into how we can integrate multi-output into the platform. It's a bit tougher because of the UX of multi-output and how we want that to work. So that's an ongoing exploration. We also do want to capitalize more on this sort of DeFi aggregator vision, which we also talked about a little bit. So integrating more of these sort of platforms you don't normally think of dexes, but can be used to swap between tokens. So another example is Yearn, for instance. So these yield aggregators will oftentimes tokenize the positions. And so you can swap from, very similar to Aave, you can swap from an underlying token into a Yearn token and then earn yield on that token. So expanding more into this space and making it easier to use our platform to essentially find yield-bearing tokens and swap into them is another feature on the roadmap. There's a few others in earlier stages, and we do have some alternative projects as well, like tokenization and some other things that may go with that are in even earlier stages. But I guess at a very high level, expanding DEX aggregation, our DEX aggregation platform through many of the things I mentioned, and then expanding the Odos platform in general to other adjacent spaces.
Yeah, that makes tons of sense. Like, now that you have everything built to where it is, it makes sense to want to like scale up and drive more adoption and further innovation. And I really like trying to like position yourself as a DeFi aggregator, not just a DEX aggregator. I think that's something that'll really help you to stand out. That's really exciting. By the way, guys, if you have any questions for the Odos team, please just drop them in the text channel, and I'll make sure to read them out. One thing that we haven't talked about at all is the possibility of a DAO or some kind of governance model. Is there any reason to implement that? Would that be something that interests you?
Yeah, so that's part of the ongoing thoughts and discussions we're having about tokenization, because that is one of the big use cases for projects tokens is some sort of DAO and governance. It becomes a little harder with a DEX aggregation model where part of the platform is off-chain, but we are thinking about how that can fit in to the tokenization and broader platform.
Cool. Also, I think a really important subject to highlight for the audience would be security of the platform. Are you guys currently undergoing any audits, or have you completed any audits?
Absolutely, yeah. So we do have an audit completed from earlier this year from Certic on our router contract, which holds all of the user approvals and is the direct point of contact for user funds. So that is audited and ensures the security of these swaps, even when we interact with malicious liquidity sources, essentially. So there's always the possibility when we're doing all this aggregation and assembling of routes that one of the liquidity sources may be malicious in some way. And the router that is audited is built in such a way that even if we route through such a source, the router sort of ensures that nothing bad will happen, that at the end of the day you will get back at minimum the slippage limit that you specified of your output tokens in return for your input tokens. Yeah.
Okay, I'm really curious. What would a malicious liquidity provider look like, or a malicious route? Is that like someone trying to bait you into like making a swap on a pool with like low liquidity so that you have like a high price impact, or what would that look like?
Exactly, yeah, that could be one example. It could be more malicious, where it's a contract that looks like a Uniswap v2 pool, but it actually doesn't use the AMM formula it says it will, and that results in you getting less output than you wanted. It could actually steal your funds entirely, so you give it your input and it doesn't send you any output. Typically these things aren't going to happen. We pre-vet all the liquidity sources, right? But it's nice to know that if something like this did happen, you would be protected via our router contract.
I noticed there's someone in the chat mentioning they're working on creating a DEX. So here's a hypothetical question for them. If I was someone creating my own DEX and I wanted you guys to aggregate some liquidity from my DEX, like how would I get involved with Odos?
Absolutely, yeah. So I think our attitude on this differs a little bit from other aggregators as well. As I mentioned, our ability to provide good prices is tied very closely to the amount of liquidity we can access. And so we are always interested in aggregating new DEXs. With the caveat that we are a small team, so we do have to prioritize to some extent, but in general, yeah, we're always open to including new DEXs. And I guess maybe Yuri can speak to how best to get in touch if you do have a DEX that you want integrated.
Right. Yeah. You're welcome to send us an email that's available on our homepage, odos.xyz, or reach out via Twitter at Odos Protocol. Either of those ways works fine.
Cool. Yeah, it looks like there was a email. If you hit contact on
Yeah,
the
or
website. So
Discord. You can ping us on Discord, both Matt and I. So we're happy to touch base and explore any synergies.
okay, perfect. I'm just gonna drop all of those links in the chat again. So if you're anybody who wants to get involved with Odos, there's the website, Twitter, Discord, Telegram. So yeah, definitely encourage everyone to follow the Twitter and get involved with the community. Check out Odos; it's really cool. Try out the multi-token input swap. Cool. I feel like I've gone through all of the questions that I had for the most part. I think so. Is there anything that you guys want to talk about that we haven't talked about already?
I think this was awesome. Thank you very much for your questions, and thank you very much for everyone else's questions as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Likewise, I think it was amazing. I think we had a lot of really good questions coming in from the audience, and it was a really thorough overview of everything Odos, and how to tap into it and get the most out of it, and what we can expect in the future. So yeah, this has been great. Um, Thank you everybody for coming and listening, and thank you Matt and Yuri for speaking with us.
Thank you very much. Yeah, check out odos.xyz. Thank you.
I just want to encourage everybody again. All the links are in the chat, so you know where to follow up. If you have any questions pop into your head after this, you know where to go and ask them. Cool. Oh, you know what? Final question coming in from Frankie. Frankie wants to know, what is your favorite part about working in this space?
Oh, well, at least for me, it's never the same, right? It changes every single day. It's really fun how the industry changes. It's really fun to see the product growing, the adoption growing. So for me, it's just new day, new challenges, new opportunities. So it's pretty fun.
Yeah, the speed in which the space is growing and changing is really great, and I think it's very unique to this field, and it allows a lot of room for innovation, which is what we're trying to do, right? And I don't think that's, yeah, like I said, I think that's somewhat unique to this field, which is great.
Yeah, for me it's the memes. Memes are definitely the best part of everything.
Of course. Hey, we encourage those on our Discord channel as well. So yes.
Fantastic. All right, well, this has been tons of fun, and I'm really looking forward to doing this again in the future. So thanks again, Matt and Yuri, and thanks again, everybody, for joining in today. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
Awesome. Thanks.
Bye now.